Welcome to another video. I recently crossed 10,000 miles in my 2022 Subaru BRZ, and I want to talk to you guys about the ownership experience thus far. If you guys have been following the channel in the last year or so, you'll remember that I took delivery of my BRZ back in December of 2021. So in just around 9 months, I've clocked 10,396 miles. This car is my daily driver. I commute to work in it 2 to 3 times a week. I've driven it in the canyons for a number of comparison videos. And of course, I take this thing to the racetrack. I've tracked this car 7 times now in the last 9 months, and I don't intend to stop anytime soon. While my car might not be the highest mileage new GR86 or BRZ out there, I think it's safe to say I have a pretty good breadth and depth of experience with this car now. So let me try to convey how I feel about this car 9 months and 10,000 miles later. To sum it up for you guys, I love driving this car now even more than the day I got it. This car provides almost everything I want and need in a dual-purpose sports coupe. It has refined ride quality, a reasonable amount of modern tech, and it's practical enough for my needs. But on the flip side, this car also has excellent driving dynamics. It gives me those classic front-engine, rear-drive handling traits when driven at the limit. It also has pretty decent driver inputs. The steering, the shifter, the brakes, everything feels driver focused and fairly connected, at least for a car being sold in 2022. In my opinion, this car has enough power for track days without feeling sluggish at the top end, and it's got plenty of low-down torque for daily driving. It's not gutless like the 2-liter engine that was found in the first-gen BRZ and FRS. Another thing I love about this car is that the aftermarket support is rapidly growing. There's an awesome community of owners out there who actually track their cars, and everyone shares knowledge with each other. It actually reminds me a lot of the Honda S2000 community that I was once part of. Since this is a relatively affordable car in the low $30,000 range, it does attract some of the younger crowd who just wants to slam their car to the ground. But I'm happy to say that there is at least a distinct group of owners who treat the car essentially as a practical tool to improve their driving skills. Earlier this year, after I owned the car for a couple of months, I told myself that I would only keep this car maybe a year, maybe 2 years tops, and then move on to a different platform. After all, for me, at least for cars, variety really is the spice of life. I've loved experiencing different cars, different platforms, and different owner communities, and that's what keeps me interested in cars, and it's exactly why I have a YouTube channel where I review a wide variety of cars. But 9 months and 10,000 miles into my ownership, I can honestly say I've grown pretty attached to this BRZ. I just love how it manages to strike such a good balance between daily drivability and usability and pure driving thrills on a canyon road or on a racetrack. And I honestly don't think there's a single car under $40,000 that's able to pull that off as well as the BRZ does. Of course, in the $40,000 to $60,000 range, you have cars like the Chevrolet Camaro SS1LE, the Mustang GT Performance Pack, or maybe even the Mach 1, and the BMW M2 Competition. But those cars have much higher limits on track, they're much more powerful and less approachable to a beginner driver, and of course they're way more expensive to buy and way more expensive to maintain and run on track. I mean, consumables like tires and gas for those cars, way more expensive. Now, I'm basically excluding every hot hatch from this conversation. To me, a hot hatch, it can be a lot of fun to drive and obviously more practical than a coupe, but the level of driving engagement just isn't there for me because you can't really steer the car with the throttle. You can't do big drifts in a front-wheel drive or even most all-wheel drive hatches. So at least for my purposes and my preferences as a driver, the BRZ and GR86 are truly in a class of one as far as new cars go. You can make the argument that there are plenty of used cars you can buy that can achieve the same purpose, but there are trade-offs to that argument that I think a lot of people don't really think about. There's something about getting a brand new car with modern tech and a full warranty that is just nice. It's nice to have. This is the first brand new car I've ever purchased, and honestly, I think I'm pretty much hooked. I'm going to continue buying new cars that are within my price range. Given that I just admitted that I'm pretty attached to my BRZ now, I'm not really sure what my plans with this car will be in the near future, at least. There are quite a few new affordable performance cars just over the horizon, and I've got my eyes on pretty much all of them as potentially my next platform. But now I'm not so sure I want to replace the BRZ so quickly. It's a car that I truly enjoy driving, and it's such a good tool for improving my driving skills. I can feel myself getting better as a driver each time I take this car out on track. It's not super snappy at the limit, and it will give you some leeway. It is a beginner-friendly as well as an advanced driver-friendly platform. And I don't think there are a whole lot of cars that I would place into that category. And I know some of you guys might be wondering, well, what about the infamous RTV issue? I'm not too worried about it, to be honest. If I had a Toyota GR86, I might be a little bit more worried. I have a good relationship with my Subaru dealer, and they've done warranty work for me in the past, and they know that I track my car. I feel pretty confident that if something were to happen to my engine, I would be covered. And on top of that, I've seen very few BRZs making the rounds on social media that have had the RTV issue. Almost all of the issues that I've seen have been related to the Toyota GR86. So I'm not sure if it's like a different RTV spec that was used for the Toyota versions, but either way, I've had no problems after 7 track days and 10,000 miles. I feel like the RTV issue would have already reared its ugly head if it was actually a problem in my specific car. So that's kind of where my head's at right now after 9 months and 10,000 miles. I'm not absolutely committed to keeping this car for a certain amount of time, but even with all the exciting performance cars coming out right now, there hasn't been one that has really convinced me, at least on paper and based on the reviews that I've seen, to replace my BRZ. Now, maybe that's something you guys can help me with in the comments. Let me know what you think about my assessment of the BRZ as the perfect daily and track car in this price range. And let's say I were to increase my budget to $40,000 or even $50,000. What cars do you think would still fit my needs as a driver while still offering enough practicality to be my dual purpose car?